Good afternoon. Last minute speaker, I got plugged in by my buddy Sandjiri here. So I was a last minute fill-in, and so I'm going to try and make this 10-15 minutes as pleasant as I can through a shared story about a product from Adobe and how they used Empathic design to launch their product using lean startup methodology, which then they scaled up to a platform which is used by millions now called Adobe Spark. So basically, the idea was to take, basically allow people, anybody, but mostly social media managers, to be more specific, to be able to tell a story using voice and be able to just post social media, create stunning visuals, basically a storytelling adventure in one click. So this is the original goal from Adobe, and they decided to use Lean Startup. This is the first time they're using Lean Startup, implementing it in their product development experience. So the app in question is called Adobe Voice. Adobe Voice. Check it out. I encourage you to check it out also on iTunes, App Store. I'm not a representative of Adobe at all, but I think it's worthwhile. If anything you get out of it is just to try it out and see. For example, a kid, let me give an example. My son has a project, and he wants to tell the story of how we went on vacation to Belgium. And he has pictures, and he wants to just tell the story of how this whole thing unveiled. And within 20 seconds, he wants to pitch his story and create some sort of cinematic effect and create some sort of feeling through watching just this. And within that 20 seconds, he's able to create that same cinematic experience that you see when you watch a commercial via an Apple or anything on TV, for example. So that's the original pitch from the. So Lean, what is it? Build, measure, learn. So we know that. What's the worst case scenario? Worst case scenario is you pitch your product and it falls flat. You get no users, nobody's interested. Second case scenario is actually the worst case scenario, which is you get a few people to go ahead and validate your hypotheses, whatever prototype you put out, but you're not able to get any true qualitative data to back up your hypotheses. You don't even know who your users are. Good question is, who are your users? Usually, if you're not able to identify who your users truly are, it means that you don't know who they are, and you cannot really go into the depths of what they really want, what their needs are, what their pain points are, what problem they're trying to solve. It's impossible to test everything. That's impossible. Oftentimes we get bogged down with A/B testing, persona mapping, empathy maps, creating personas. Creating personas is, I think, it's a good tool to start out, but when you take hundreds of people with all different personalities, different contexts, and you try to crunch them into 3 or 4 personas, with details such as, their Spotify playlist or where they went on vacation last, it's a lot of noise that usually derails from what your actual goal is, which is to find out who your users truly are and what their needs really are in terms of what problem you're trying to solve for them. So Adobe took the approach of actually, number one, going out to actually meeting their customers. So meeting your customers, so that's either via social media, they pitched the idea using a hashtag, which was Adobe.Spruce, created their prototype, put it online, and upon doing that, they were able to generate some interest. People got some feedback. People got returned with their feedback, and they were able to generate a connection through which they were able to get to know who the people were, ask them questions about what it is they were actually trying to get done through this product. So one of the main patterns that they found out, for example, was, I'm a social media manager, for example. I want to be able to just have text relayed over photo and be able to post it in a click. And how do I validate that hypothesis? Simply, oftentimes, what they found out also was that 50% of those people had that very simple goal, and that the rest of the 50% had no distinct pattern around which they could validate their hypotheses. So we get to design people usually say constraints drive clarity. And customer constraints drive clarity. So that's the old theory of constraints, which is important to note because it goes back to the old adage of finding a problem, solving a problem to create a product. Oftentimes we have our own hypotheses, our own biases around something that we feel like is amazing, is going to work, but it doesn't really solve a specific issue, a specific problem. And in this case, going back to the social media manager, infographics was the entry point in terms of what problem we're trying to solve. How do we make infographics, creating infographics in an easy way without having to go through Photoshop, which takes time because I have to learn how to use it, or going through my Photoshop developer who I have to send and pitch the idea to, and for him to take 24 hours or 2 weeks and however much amount of budget to create that for me. So going back to validating your hypotheses and creating empathy. User testing, I believe, and this is from my own personal experience, does not validate, it's not a way to build empathy. I don't think it's a good way to build empathy because you're not creating any connection to build upon your validation. The more users you talk to, the more information you get. And that's the law of diminishing returns. So that goes to speak to people when oftentimes you want to take a huge sample amount of testers, hundreds, to validate a hypothesis. You only need 5 of them. I'm getting this sign here for 5 minutes left. Social media tools also was also a platform through which I think that more and more we need to use to sort of create a connection between with the user. You can garner users through social media, using hashtags, developing your pitching your idea, and creating links through social media. Another way of creating empathy is actual interviews. I think creating a link with people online is great, but I think actually meeting people, if you're able to, or creating an actual connection with them, whether it be chat or via actual face-to-face, or the users on the other side of the globe, Skype or whatever have you, communication isn't a hindrance anymore. I think we have all the tools in place to be able to get around that. Get to know who they are. If we're going back to the magic number of 5, get to know who those 5, 6 people are. Get to know what kind of space they're in. Get to know what exact problem, how that's related to what you're trying to solve for them, and generate your patterns from what you learn with those 5 people. I'm not going to have time to delve into this much, so I'll just go ahead and wrap up and say basically that creating empathy, I think there's a number of ways to do that, but I think it should be at the center, at the heart of your strategy to test product, and dissolve strategy and get insight, which then either validates or doesn't validate. But at least if you're able to get that out quickly to your users, you're able to quickly fix or quickly understand that you were wrong and able to pivot and pitch something else. And like I said, in my personal case, I actually had a startup idea that I worked on about 3 years ago. It was based on smart homes and integration systems. The overall pitch was quickly, I'm going to automate your home for you. I'm going to give you a chance to either have access control to a door or be able to automatically play your playlist from your office into your home. Have a look at what the nanny's doing when they get to your place, and you can see this all through your mobile phone. I pitched the idea to Toyota Motors in Nigeria. Pitched the idea to a judge who was actually in London, Nigerian judge who did a lot of travel but had an office in Lagos as well. And through just the conversations I was able to create with them, I was able to pinpoint exactly what they didn't need. And I found the actual pattern that I found was that they were all axed around security. And this is through the conversations I was able to have with them, which I would have never been able to garner from A/B testing or sending out surveys or what have you. So like I said, just to finish up, to wrap it up, I think it's more important to create connection with however many users, those few users you have, whether it be 5, 6, whatever the case may be, but getting into the actual nuts and bolts of the problem you're trying to solve for them is, I think, the message I want to, that's important. I think that we should sort of hunker down on when creating products. And thank you for your time. I'm sorry I had to squeeze that in 10 minutes. So I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.